Today we're going to be building in the NZXT H5 flow. We have the RX 6750 XT and the Ryzen 9 5900X. We're going to be installing the brain of the system, a Ryzen 9 5900X. It has 12 cores and 24 threads, perfect for gaming and video editing. First, pick up your CPU. You're going to make sure you pick it up by the side so that you don't bend any pins. Then you're going to want to release the tension arm on the side of the motherboard, CPU socket. This is the back of the CPU. This is the socket on the motherboard. You're going to want to line up this CPU with this right here. Look for the golden star right here on the corner of the chip. Then if you look in your Asus motherboard or any other motherboard, there should be a small triangle right there. You should line it up and then place it gently so that it drops in. Be careful with this part so that you don't bend any pins on the CPU. What you have to do now is lower the retention arm on the side of the CPU socket. So we're going to be installing a RAM. This is crucial Ballistix 32GB kit, 16GB on each stick at 3200 MHz. Motherboard, you're going to want to push back the second and the fourth latches. On some motherboards, you have to do it on both sides, but because this is an Asus board, you only have to do it on one side. Then you're going to want to take your RAM stick, match up the notch on the RAM stick with the notch right here located on the RAM slot. You're going to push it in like this, line it up with the two. Then you're going to push it on both sides. Take your click, make sure it's in all the way. You do the same thing for this one right here. You're going to want to do it like this so that you make sure you get dual channel memory. Dual channel memory allows you to get maximum performance when playing games and video editing. It also allows you to enable things like XMP profile and BIOS to get the maximum performance for the rated speed out of your RAM. For the storage in the system, we're going to go with the 980 Pro 1TB version, NVMe SSD, and then we're going to be going with the Inland 512 version NVMe SSD. The gaming drive is going to be the 980 Pro, and I'm going to keep majority of our images, video editing save files, on the 512GB. So on the motherboard, you're going to want to remove this spot right here and this spot right here. Underneath these should be the M.2 slot that these SSDs go into. The SSD is going to go into these two slots right here, and then right down here. So to insert it into the slot, just line it up like this and push it into the slot. I'll take this one right here, do the same thing for the bottom slot. If I can do this with one hand, there we go. In most cases, it's going to come in your motherboard box. There's going to be two small screws that you can use to screw them down to right here. But in our case, it doesn't really matter, and I don't have them anyway. So I'm just going to screw these back down into the motherboard to get them secured in there. One thing to mention before doing this, there might be some plastic that you got to take off the back of the heat sinks, because some motherboards do come with this little heat sink to keep the SSD cooled down. For the CPU, we're going to be using the DeepCastle 240 AIO. I already have the mounting brackets on here, but there's going to come with two black ones right here that you're going to have to remove in some cases if you're installing the AIO. But if you're installing an air cooler to have clamps on the side, you're going to want to have to keep those on here so that you can clamp it down. But before we install the CPU cooler, we're going to need thermal paste. Thermal paste gets rid of that empty space in between the CPU and the CPU cooler, keeping the temps nice and low. So the thermal paste we're going to be using for this build is going to be the TM30 by Corsair. To get full coverage, we're going to be installing it in an X pattern. Alright, a bit of a mess, but thermal paste is usually a messy process, but this is how we're going to do it right here. It should get full coverage across the entire CPU. We're going to be installing our CPU cooler like this with the pipes on the bottom, and the AIO is going to be mounted at the top of the case, so it'll make sense once it's falling in there. So once you have firmly placed down on all sides, everything's lined up, you're going to take these right here, which comes with your this AIO. Then there's thumb screws, so you're just going to screw it down with your hand right here in that X formation so you can get nice even pressure along the entire CPU. The motherboard is ready, but before we put it inside of our PC case, we're going to install a power supply just to save us some hassle. For this build, we're going to be using the ROG Thor 850 watt Platinum. This is our power supply. Our power supply is fully modular, so here are the cables we're going to need. We're going to need the PCIe cables, which are going to go into our graphics card. Then we're going to need these cables right here, the CPU power cables, which are going to go into the top of the motherboard. And then we're going to need this big one right here, which goes directly into the motherboard on the side. Other peripherals like fan hubs and hard drives, you're going to need this cable right here to power them. Inside of your computer case is going to be a power supply bay. You can put the power supply bay can either be located right here or right here. First, we have to take out the screws on the side of it to take out the back panel. Now the power supply can go right here. You're going to want to place the power supply fan side down so the power supply can get adequate airflow from the bottom of the PC case. And it should have a fan filter right here to keep all the dust and stuff out. Power supply should come with 4 screws to screw it in. Before we install our motherboard, I like to pre-cable manage so that every cable is where it's supposed to be, so I don't have to worry about it once the motherboard is in. Power our fans, I want to be using the Corsair Commander Pro. This will allow us to connect all our fans into one singular thing, to save up the fan ports on the motherboard, also allows us to control fan speeds and the fan curve. To make this PC build look better, we're going to be using white cable extensions from Asia Horse. What you have to do to connect these is match them up to the original cable with this side in and then that side right there. Now that our motherboard is ready, we can install into the PC case. Some PC cases already have the motherboard standoffs pre-installed, but if they're not, you're going to want to install them based on the size of your motherboard. Before we can install it though, we're going to have to install our I/O shield. But in this case, our I/O shield is already installed onto the motherboard, but if yours is not, you're going to want to pop it into this slot right here. The motherboard is fully in, but before we install the AIO, I want to connect the motherboard connector cables so that it's easier. Now that the main power cables are fully in, now we're going to want to install the main motherboard headers, which go right here and right over here. One of the features I love the most about this PC case is the front panel connectors. The front panel connectors are really easy to connect in this case because they're all one thing, but in the majority of the cases, the front panel connectors are going to be multiple pins that go into these headers right here. And so what you're going to do, you're going to go to your motherboard manual and see what goes where in which direction. Here comes my favorite part about building a computer, installing the graphics card. This build, we're going to be using the RX 6750 XT by AMD. This card is perfect for 1440p gaming at high to ultra settings. It also has 12 GB of VRAM, which is really good for the newer AAA titles. This could be comparable to the RTX 3070 and sometimes, in some cases, even the 3070 Ti. Now that the slots are removed on the side, we're going to be installing our graphics card. First, you have to push open this retention right here. Then you can just slide your graphics card in. Now that your graphics card is in and fully connected, you're going to want to go over to the side and screw it down. Now for the most tedious part of the entire PC building process, cable management. You're going to want to take advantage of the Velcro straps that come with your PC case if you have them. And you're going to want to get some zip ties to make the cable management process easier. Your PC is now finished. Now you're going to want to head straight into your BIOS by either spamming delete or F2. While you're in the BIOS, you're going to want to click on AI Tweaker, AI Overclock Tuner, then select DLPC. When you get here, you're going to want to set your RAM to its max rated frequency, which in my case is going to be 3200 megahertz. You can check that by going onto your RAM box and seeing what the max rated frequency is. So you would just go here and then you look for your RAM speed, then click on it, and then yeah, there you go. Your RAM is now at its max running frequency. Then you just want to go in easy mode and then save and exit. There you go. For those of you using an AIO and not a CPU cooler, you might get this error right here, but I'll show you how to fix it. Once you're back in your BIOS, you're going to want to go into the advanced mode, then click on search, type in CPU fan, press enter, and then it's going to say CPU fan NA. You just want to click on this and set it to ignore. Then click exit, easy mode, save and exit. Then it should start back up. It should be inside of your home. Depending on which GPU you have, you're going to either want to go to AMD.com or NVIDIA.com and select your GPU and then just click download your drivers and then you should be ready to game. Now the PC is built, let's get into some benchmarks and some gaming performance.
Planting mine! Got you covered. in mind.
Our counter UAV is active. Friendly UAV on station.
Throw flash grenade! Multiple movers!
Hostile UAV in the area. Ghost online.
Stun incoming!
Turning around.
Changing
Bring them
maps!
back.
Setting mine!
Hostile care package deployed. Hold drone
Changing
ready.
maps! Stun grenade!
Enemy UAV overhead.
Bomb drone deployed!
Bomb drone is armed. Friendly UAV online. Good effect on target.